Hey everybody, I'm trying to get Instagram set up. So if you're here, give me just a second and let me get TikTok going, get Instagram going. There's a lot happening right now. Let's see. All right, I'm here. Thanks for being here. I'm trying to get Instagram going. It's its own thing. I'm on TikTok on one screen, I'm on Facebook and Instagram on another screen. And so I'm learning all of this, but I was sitting here today preparing for my week, watching videos, reading, kind of doing some strategic interventions. And I thought, there's a conversation that we need to have. For those of you who don't know, October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And if you don't know, I started the Intimate Partner Betrayal Awareness Day, which is a form of relational abuse. And so it is a form of domestic violence that doesn't get enough press, that doesn't get talked about enough. But I've been watching videos about domestic violence and the ways that it gets carried on. And one of the main tools for violence and abuse to occur is silence. And typically, that is the silence of the victim, that is the silence of the person who is being harmed. The abuser counts on you being silent because of shame, because of worry, because of being judged. And that's a real scenario for a person who's experiencing harm. But the reason they want you to be silent is because there is power in a woman's voice. When a woman speaks up for herself, Maya Angelou said, when a woman speaks up for herself, she also speaks up for every other woman. She gives every other woman the courage to speak up for herself. And so I have been speaking up about intimate partner betrayal. Everybody keeps saying that's a mouthful. Well, of course, it's a mouthful because the scenario is complicated. Betrayal can occur in any kind of relationship. You can be betrayed by your parents, you can be betrayed at work, you can be betrayed by friends. But the type of betrayal that I'm bringing awareness to is the type of betrayal that happens in intimate partner relationships. And so, therefore, it is called intimate partner betrayal. There's a lot more nuance when you talk about intimate partner betrayal because in most other relationships, you are not rolling over and looking at the person who did the betraying. In most scenarios, like say you're an adult and you're betrayed by your parents, you can leave that relationship. You can choose to go no contact with them. In an intimate partner relationship, many times the betrayed partner ends up staying. And many times the betrayed partner has children with the betrayer. And therefore, the sense that she can just leave or walk away is really not possible without great cost. And so what got me going today was I was watching this video about this lady who came across this guy who was harming children. He was harming um he was harming children through violence. I don't want to say the type of violence, but you can use your imagination. And he comes across this lady and realizes that he's harming children. And so she goes on a campaign to bring awareness to what this man is doing. First, she tries to out him. She goes to the police, they brush her off. Then she goes to his mother, and his mother brushes her off. She tries to start a campaign to bring awareness. Hey, this man's harming children. He's harming children. And nobody would believe this lady. She went so far as to say, the only way that I can expose him is for me to enter back into a relationship with him and have record myself with him. So she recorded herself with him and then just took all those videos and took them to the police. She took the videos of the recorded conversations to the police. Again, they ignored her. It wasn't until she had specific videos that they finally listened to her and what she was sharing about the harm that this man was doing and that they arrested him. However, through the court trial, they also arrested her because they said that she knew he was doing these things. She had the material because he was sending her videos and things like that. She had the material and she didn't notify anyone. Well, she had notified someone. She had notified someone and her notifications went unheard. And then I thought about, I don't know if anybody's seen the Anna Kendrick's movie called The Woman of the Hour. It's based on a true story about a girl and her roommate. Something happens to her roommate and she's trying to notify police and all of this, and people will not listen to her. But this man ends up being a serial unaliver. And despite the roommate constantly going to the police to try to get help, silence. They don't want to hear it. I saw a post about a victim sharing her story of abuse and the number of people who came on there and said, why don't you just get over it? Why don't you move on? And I think this is the story that a lot of women are told. They're expected to just move on. Nobody wants to hear it. We don't want to hear what you have to say about harm that happened to you. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people work so hard to silence women about the harm that happens to them? Well, the reason they want to do that is because they benefit from it. Harm, what's the quote? Like, the only thing required for a man to do great harm is to do nothing, to say nothing, to be silent. And so when women are silent, and this is not victim blaming, because I'm going to get into what it costs a woman to come forward and share her story of harm, of mistreatment, of abuse. It's going to subject her to ridicule, it's going to subject her to loss of community, it's going to subject her to taunting, blaming, all the things. You are further abused by the system when you are a woman who comes forward and names the abuse that is happening to you, because people don't want to hear it. They just want you to be silent. So I started talking about Maya Angelou, and she was saying that, one of the things that when a woman stands up for herself, she gives other women the courage to do the same, and she stands up for all women. And so I wanted to read a quote from Maya Angelou that I think is really powerful and is illustrating the power that we have as women when we choose to speak up. So she says, I not only have the right to stand up for myself, but I have the responsibility. I can't ask somebody else to stand up if I won't stand up for myself. And that is what I'm doing in bringing awareness to intimate partner betrayal. I stood up for myself. And in standing up for myself, I am standing up for others. I'm standing up for my clients. I'm standing up for women who aren't in a place yet, and I'm saying yet, to share their stories, because I think that it takes time and healing for a person to get to the place where they feel comfortable sharing their story. But it is such a necessary part of healing and such a vital part of healing for a partner to be able to come forward and share their story. And when they can't do that because of fear, then it empowers the system that causes harm. And so women have to be able to speak up. They need spaces to do that. That's where TikTok and social media has really been powerful because people are coming forward sharing their stories. And of course, the powers that be do not like that. The powers that be do not like women who come forward and share their stories. But to every woman, and every woman has a story. If you followed the path of, okay, who would you rather have? Who would you rather be alone in the woods with, the man or the bear? And all these women that were choosing the bear because of the danger of being alone with men. And you saw how people ridicule that campaign, how nobody wanted to hear it. They said women were being crazy. And that is the label that people like to throw onto women who want to come forward and tell the truth. You're called a troublemaker. You're called a B word. You're called unforgiving. You're called hard and difficult and trying to be like a man. You're not in your feminine energy, and all of these other crazy things and terms that people use to silence women. But today, for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I wanted to come on and talk about the power of a woman's voice. Yesterday, Diane Keaton passed away, and everyone is sharing stories of her power, her strength, how she went against the norm. She was outside of the box person. She wasn't afraid to stand up and make noise, to go against the boxes that mainstream media tried to put her in, to be her own person. And for a woman who chooses to go against the norms, to go against the sugar and spice and everything nice that everybody wants her to be, she's going to stir up some trouble. And as a woman who has never been afraid to use her voice, I can tell you that that's going to get you in a lot of trouble. That's going to get you isolated. That's going to get you labeled as a troublemaker. But like Harriet Tubman said, she said, I freed 1,000 slaves, and I could have freed 1,000 more if they would have known that they were slaves. Why? Because freedom is not free. To be a free woman in our society is going to cost you something. And for many of us, it costs us relationship, which is the thing we most long for. So I'm reading this book called Women Who Love Psychopaths, and it's about by Sandra Brown. It's about women who enter into these, she calls them pathological love relationships. You're in a relationship with a narcissist, a sociopath, or a psychopath. And I know these terms get thrown a lot around a lot. What I want to say is the DSM is created to be able to diagnose people, but there are many people who fit some of the criteria and not all of the criteria. And because they don't fit all of the criteria, they don't get the label of narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath. But in my opinion, you can be narcissistic, you can be psychopathic, you can be sociopathic, and you will still have a lot of those same qualities. And so, how does a woman who is smart, who is successful, who has a great job, has great accomplishments, end up in a relationship with a pathological type of person? And many of the reasons for that is because of how women are socialized. If you're just joining, I'm on two screens. So I'm looking at both. I'm trying to interact with people over here and over here, but I'm trying to stay in tune with everybody. But this is such an important conversation for women because we have the power to change these dynamics. People say knowledge is power. It is not just knowledge that is power, it is applied knowledge that is power. You have to take what you learn and actually apply it in order for it to be powerful. If you just learn, and you're on information overload, all you're going to do is be exhausted because you're going to be carrying the weight of all of this information, but then not doing anything with it. So let's talk about a quality that Sandra Brown. So Sandra Brown researches what types of women end up in relationships with these pathological people: psychopaths, sociopath, and narcissists. Okay. And she does all this research, and there are two qualities that she names. There are several. So if you want to get the book, let me show you the book. This is the book, Women Who Love Psychopaths. Highly, highly, highly recommended. I'm recommending it to my clients. I'm making videos about it. I think it's a perfect topic of conversation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But two of the qualities she talks about are agreeableness and cooperation. And she said these are like outside of the bell curve. So, if you've done research, you look at it, and most people fit in this bell curve. She says these two things, agreeableness and cooperation, are their relationship investment traits. Women naturally invest in relationships. We are very relational. Human beings are relational, but women especially tend to be relational. And so she says that, and I want to read directly from the book, because it's not even worth me paraphrasing because her words are so powerful. But she talks about elevated personality traits of agreeableness and cooperativeness, and how they are connected to what she calls relationship investment traits. And those are traits that promote a person's deep interest in others. So these other centered women end up in relationships with self centered men. Other centered women end up in relationships with self centered men. And so this trait is other person oriented, meaning that someone who possesses this trait can keep others in mind as they interact. These people are described as warm, sociable, likable, friendly, and tolerant of others. These are all qualities that we know are great. And they are great until you end up in a relationship with what she calls the darkness, a dark person. And most of us are not taught to discern or to know the difference between when we're in a relationship with a safe person and when we're in a relationship with a dark person. So these people, these women, possess greater than normal patience, are generous toward the disadvantaged, are peacemakers, and are forgiving. It is the amount of agreeableness that predicts how well a person will adapt to adversities and how well they can roll with life as it has been dealt to them. Again, these are all positive qualities. These are good things, but they are not good when you end up in a situation with a person who operates in darkness. So she says there have been many misguided assumptions as to why highly successful women invest in relationships that turn out to cause inevitable harm. These assumptions are precisely why survivors have been wrongfully labeled. I want you to hear that. This is why survivors have been wrongfully labeled as dependent and codependent, without the understanding that the survivor's personality influences the course of her interactions. Factors such as abuse, trauma, learned helplessness, PTSD, relationship addiction, and various forms of dependency are assumed to be the culprits. So basically, we blame the victim for the harm that comes to them. No one is responsible for their own abuse. No one can be blamed for their own abuse. So these titles get thrown around. It's your abuse, it's your trauma, it's your PTSD, it's your love addiction, it's your codependency. But really, what it is that you are a highly agreeable and cooperative person. And when you're a highly agreeable and cooperative person, you want to see everybody win. You want everybody to get along. You want to see everybody succeed. You want peace and harmony. Well, guess what? We live in a world where peace and harmony can only exist with other people who also want peace and harmony. When you pursue peace and harmony in a relationship with somebody who operates in darkness, what will happen is harm to you. I'm going to repeat that. When you are in a relationship, when you want peace and harmony, that's your goal in a relationship, and you are in a relationship with someone who operates in darkness, it will result in harm to you. So she talks about these relationship investments and how you get a return on an investment when you're invested in a relationship with another good person. But with pathological love relationships, darkness capitalizes on the partner's natural predisposition to invest without knowing what they're investing in. And I would add to that, to invest without even thinking about the return on the investment. This was true in my story. A very giving, loving, kind person, believing that when you give to others, they give back to you. That's what I was taught. My religion reinforced that. That is the golden rule, right? Treat others like you want to be treated. So she says survivors have naturally occurring elevated trait that already categorizes relationships as important investment vehicles. And while some people prefer stocks and bonds, these trait elevated survivors found relationships to be a significant source of what produces happiness in their lives. If you're a highly relational person, you value your relationships with people above all else. When I'm reading this book, I expect my picture to be in here because I feel like this lady is talking to me. This is how I ended up in a relationship with a pathological person, with a person who operates in darkness because of these traits of agreeableness and cooperation. Actually, I think I have most of the traits that she lists, but right now we're focusing on these two. She says this can be seen in the rich and deep relationships in which they've been involved and have maintained over their lifetime. So, here, listen to me. If you're on this, I want you to check yourself and see, do you still have friends from childhood, from high school? Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me too. This is about me too, right? I'm looking in the mirror. And this is so many women that I know, which is why I wanted to come on here and talk about this, because there are so many women who don't understand how they keep ending up in these scenarios. But she says you have relationships from childhood, high school, college, and even former employment positions. No doubt this relationship investment trade has created a rewarding life. It's created happy relationships with others. People with these relationships care deeply about the quality of their relationships. Highly relational. Most of the time, we would say that's good, right? We want highly relational people. That is a quality that we celebrate. Again, it is good when you are in relationship with other people who are also highly relational, when they're other centered. It is not good when you're in a relationship with somebody who operates in darkness. So she says, until darkness, right? That you get a return on your investment. In past relationships, the investment has paid rich dividends in the enhancement of the quality of your lives. Until darkness. Until darkness. Once you encounter darkness, your life changed. What is the unrealized trait that elevates someone relationship investment status, creating a natural tendency to find happiness and life contentment in a relationship? That is agreeableness. So she goes on to define agreeableness as trust. So again, if you're listening, I want you to be checking in with yourself and see if this is describing you. Trust, straightforwardness, a giving nature, cooperation, humbleness, and empathy. Trust is trusting of others, optimistic about human nature, sees others through who she is. Straightforwardness, upfront, honest, confiding, a giving nature, altruistic, sacrificial nature, considerate, willing to compromise, cooperation, prone to assisting others rather than attacking, motivated by social harmony, reciprocal in relationships, humbleness, modest in her portrayal of herself, gentle, well tempered, empathy, tender minded, kind, generous, loyal, allegiance to others, faithfulness, committed to obligations. So when you have and tolerance, right? You tolerate different opinions and ideas. You don't have to have your own way. These things I want to keep saying are great qualities when you are in relationship with other people who possess these qualities. They are terrible qualities when you are in a relationship with someone who operates in darkness. And your addiction to hope and hopium, wanting to see the best in other people, will blind you to the reality that there are people who operate in darkness. Sometimes people are traumatized, some people are stuck in addiction. However, I am talking about people who, despite all of that, their natural disposition is darkness. They operate in darkness. And we don't talk enough about these kinds of people. That's how they fly under the radar, which is again why I'm talking about the power of a woman's voice. If we don't talk about these types of people, for fear of being labeled as unforgiving, harsh, critical, the B word, difficult to get along with, too masculine, all these terms that get women get labeled, then guess what happens to the next woman and the next woman and the next woman and the next woman? They experience the harm. So now we're all online telling the same stories about the same type of darkness that we encountered, but then we stop talking about it. I am on a mission to keep talking about this. I am tired of seeing women harmed. I am tired of seeing generations of women repeat this cycle. I am tired of seeing families fall apart, children being abandoned. And again, the cycle continues, right? These generational cycles of harm that are allowed to continue because women stay silent. Let's get comfortable with people calling us difficult. Let's get comfortable with not caring about other people's opinions. Let's get comfortable with trusting our own voice and learning to stand up for ourselves. Let's get comfortable with people trying to label us, but not accepting those labels as truth. This lady I talked about earlier, who went to the police and told stories about this guy who was causing all of this harm, she got arrested. When I posted stories about women calling the police in domestic violence situations, do you know how many women were in the comments saying, "Yep, I called the police and I got arrested too because he had a scratch or his shirt was torn where I was trying to get him off of me, where I got, labeled as, I mean, hello, did anybody see the Gabby Petito story? Anybody watch that documentary? I posted about Betty Broderick and how Betty Broderick's husband pushed her to the limit, to the point where Betty Broderick is now in jail for unaliving her former husband and his partner. But this man literally stripped her of everything. She was highly agreeable, highly cooperative. When he went to medical school, she supported him through medical school. And then when he decided he wanted to be a lawyer, She supported him through that. That lady was selling Tupperware so that this man could chase his dreams. Highly cooperative, highly agreeable, without her realizing that this man was operating in darkness. And you know how we don't know that people are operating in darkness? It's not just because we're agreeable and cooperative and we're seeing people through our eyes, it is because they hide. They present themselves as people who are walking in light. They say what you say. They agree with you. You share your dreams. Wow, that's crazy. That's my dream too, right? They lure you into this place to gain your trust, to learn your secrets, to put you in a vulnerable place. And then, like vampires, they suck you dry. And that's what Betty Broderick's husband did to her. He sucked her dry until the point where she was empty. So, one of the things she talks about, if you're just joining, I'm reading from Sandra Brown's book, Women Who Love Psychopaths, and talking about why women need to keep speaking up about harmful men, why we need to keep talking about it despite being labeled difficult, despite being labeled the B word, despite being labeled as unforgiving. Call me what you want. I'm not going to stop talking because my mission here is to help other women. So the only people who have a problem with victims sharing their stories are people who want to continue to perpetuate harm or protect the systems of harm that exist. If anybody saw the story about Robert Morris was a pastor here in Texas. He was the founder of Gateway Church, which has many locations. Robert Morris molested a 12-year-old for 4 years and got away with it. This Her name is Cindy Clemenshire. Cindy has been going around telling her story, trying to get people to listen. The church blew her off. Initially, all Cindy wanted was for them to pay for her to go to counseling, and they said no. And so Cindy said, "Okay, bet. You don't want to pay for my counseling. Now I'm taking this story public." And she kept talking, she kept talking, she kept talking until she found someone who would listen. And that is what it requires when you are a woman who wants to use your voice. It is tiring. It is exhausting. It is going against the grain. It is disrupting people's lives. But people and systems of oppression and violence benefit from your silence. They benefit from your silence. They want you to just be quiet and go away, but we have to refuse to do so. We have to keep talking about it. Why? Because we want to help the next generation. We want to help the next woman. We want to be like Maya Angelou. And we want to stand up for ourselves so that we can give other people to stand up for themselves. Every woman deserves to have her voice heard. Every person who is harmed deserves to have their voice heard. And when we don't share our stories, other people get to be in control of the narrative. So for years, Robert Morris told the narrative that he was in an immoral sexual relationship with a young lady. That's exactly the wording he used, that he was in an immoral sexual relationship with a young lady. First of all, 12 is a girl, not a young lady. Second of all, it's not just immoral, it's illegal for a grown man. He was married at the time. He was a married grown man at the time, taking advantage of and molesting a 12-year-old girl. And so the narrative that he told, and I can tell you firsthand because I attended Gateway in Houston. And so I heard this story several times about the sexually immoral relationship that he had with a young lady. This was not consensual, which is how it was presented. It was not a young lady, it was a girl. And it was not just immoral, it was illegal. But I sat and listened to him tell this story. I sat and listened to him control the narrative of this story until last year when Cindy Clemenshire finally was heard and able to share her story. And then we find out that he was a trusted family friend in the home of her parents, inviting her to his room at 12 years old and taking advantage of her from the age 12 to 14. This is Robert Morris, founder of Gateway Church here in Texas. You don't have to take my word for it. You can Google it. He just got sentenced last week to only 6 months, which is sad. It's sad, sad, sad. To only 6 months. He has to label himself as a sex offender, rightfully so. He is a sex offender. But the amount of harm that came to Cindy Clemenshire, and I went and looked at the comments on her interviews on YouTube and her telling her story, and the amount of women in the comments saying, this happened 30 years ago. This happened 40 years ago. And was justice served? No, it was not. So at what point do we stop fighting for it? There is no time limit on a person getting the justice they deserve for harm that came to them. And so, ladies, if you are listening to this, we have to be willing to stand up and fight. It is tiring, it is exhausting, it is an uphill battle, but we are fighting for the lives of our sisters. We're fighting for the lives of our daughters. We're fighting for the lives of our mothers. How many people, all you have to do is go look at my videos online, okay? I have a video on TikTok right now that I made last week, I think, talking about how proximity makes men look like good fathers and how men use women and children to prop themselves up and make themselves look good. Go look at all the comments. Go look at all the comments of women telling their stories or talking about their mothers, talking about their own fathers, talking about the fathers of their children, and how no, they weren't good men, but they propped themselves up to look like that through the labor of the women and the children. We're not talking 30 years ago, 20 years ago. This is a present day phenomenon. And so we women have to be willing to speak up. Men are not going to tell the stories. We have to tell our own stories. We have to have the courage to come forward and say, I won't be silenced. I won't be bullied. I won't shut up. Be willing to be called difficult. Be willing to be called troublemaker. Be willing to be called whatever. People can call you whatever. There's nothing we can do to change that. But what we can do is not allow them to silence us. So I want to read this some more from this book about cooperativeness and agreeableness being, Sandra Brown calls them super traits that allow these pathological love relationships or relationships with people who operate in darkness to continue. How women tend to be harmed and victimized in these relationships. So she talks about being trusting and trustworthy. She says, of all the facets of agreeableness, the Institute believes this one little facet may be at the center. This is core to how darkness flies under the radar of detection. If you are naturally a trusting and trustworthy person, I want you to put down whatever you're doing right now and listen to this. Because if you are trusting and trustworthy, that means you are naturally going to attract people who operate in darkness. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're broken. You're not codependent. You are a good person. And people who operate in darkness seek out good people. Okay. There's a movie a lot of people did not watch, Sinners, Ryan Coogler's movie. I don't know where it is right now. It might be on HBO, I think. But in that movie, he talks about how there are people who are so naturally gifted that they attract these forces of darkness from the spirit realm. Now, if you don't believe that we are supernatural beings having a normal human experience, then that's not going to make sense to you. But I firmly believe that we are supernatural beings having a natural human experience. And when you are a supernatural being of light, just like when you turn on your light outside and bugs flock to that light, you will naturally attract darkness when you are a person who operates in light. Therefore, you have to be aware of the darkness that is around you. And she says that trusting and trustworthiness is at the center of how darkness flies under the radar. Not only is the survivor trusting and trustworthy, her natural tendency is to see others through who she is or as she sees herself. I'm going to say it again. Her natural tendency is to see others through who she is or as she sees herself. When we look at her characteristics, it indicates she comes tweaked with all the delicate and sensitive traits of being other oriented. You don't worry about yourself. You don't think about yourself. You would never be called selfish unless you're in a relationship with a person who operates in darkness, but you would never be called selfish because you're always looking out for the well being of others. You are the giver, you are the caretaker, you are the naturally empathetic friend, you are loyal, you are kind, you find great joy in seeing other people happy. You are highly relational. You thrive on relationship. I'm talking about myself, by the way. So I hope nobody feels judged by what I'm saying because all of these qualities are true of me, which is why I'm so passionate about this book. But she says you're other oriented. Since relationships outside of a pathological love relationship have been successful, nothing is on her radar that would signal an adverse condition in which she must think, feel, relate, behave differently. Honestly, if you're a person who operates in light, you don't even know the ways of darkness until today. Until today, if you're watching this, you're learning that now. You don't know the ways of darkness, but you do now. Okay. So nothing in you gets alerted to the danger to act differently, to not trust others or see others as you see yourself. Give me a minute to take a drink of water. I hope y'all are taking notes. This is free knowledge that I'm giving for the well-being. Here I am being other oriented, but I can't help it. However, I've also learned how to protect and guard myself. So I am not allowing the darkness to change me. I am allowing it to make me wiser. I am allowing it to equip me to do the work that I do, which is helping women also recognize when they are in a pathological love relationship with a narcissistic, psychopathic, or sociopathic person who operates in darkness. So her natural reaction, my natural reaction, and maybe is your natural reaction too, is to think that other people are similarly motivated by agreeableness and cooperativeness. The predisposition of seeing others as she sees herself is related to her optimism, right? You believe the best about people, you give people the benefit of the doubt, you trust them until they give you a reason not to. We're not going to do that anymore, okay? 2025, October 12th, Sunday. Oh, that's funny. It's 5:25 p.m. Today is the last day at 5:24. So as of 1 minute ago, we are not giving people the benefit of the doubt. We are not trusting people until they give us a reason not to. We are not assuming things about people that we want to be true. We are seeing people as they are. And when people show us who they are, we are believing them, right? Right. Okay. So she says her belief system is a filter through which she sees the world. And so she believes people are more like her than not. And if problems arise, she has the natural gift of team and relationship building that has always worked in the past, because one of those qualities of agreeableness is also being a peacemaker. Okay, you know how to work through conflict, you know how to bring people together, you know how to agree to disagree. You don't get your feathers easily ruffled. You want everybody to get along. You love kumbaya. Well, guess what? You cannot kumbaya with somebody who is trying to unalive you. You cannot kumbaya with somebody who is trying to harm you. You cannot kumbaya with somebody that is operating in darkness. When you see darkness, it is not your job to illuminate the darkness in other people. It is your job to see the darkness and to move away, to know that you don't need to go in the darkness. So she says, if problems arise, you have the natural gift of team relationship building that has always worked in the past. It's worked in your friendships, it's worked with your children, it works in your family of origin, it works at work. All of these things, it smooths out the problems. Optimism about humanity and the ability to lead others to transformation is obviously paramount as a trait in transformational leaders. I call myself a transformational coach. I help people go from hurting to healing to wholeness when they want to, when they want to, when they're willing to, when they are ready to do the work. However, I do not delude myself that I can take someone who operates in darkness and who likes the darkness and lead them to the light. No, thank you. No, thank you. We have to stop thinking that it is our responsibility to save men. Society will tell you that. Your religion will tell you that. Your friends will tell you that. Oh, he's emotionally stunted. He doesn't understand. He just needs time. It's his trauma, right? I have to say some of these things to my clients, but I only say it when I believe it's true. If I don't believe that's true, if I believe that this is a person that's operating in darkness, I'm going to sound all the alarms. And despite sounding the alarms, some people don't want to hear this. Why? Because it goes against your very nature to believe that people can just be dark. They can operate in darkness. Men can operate in darkness. Women can operate in darkness. But I'm talking specifically to women who end up in these pathological love relationships with these men. So it says the survivor in some ways unconsciously projects her own traits on others, assuming they are similar. This is giving people the benefit of the doubt. Since she is trustworthy and sees others similarly, she believes most people are trustworthy. If you think most people are trustworthy, let me know that. If that's what you were taught and that's what you believe and that's how you operate, let me know in the comments. If you grew up thinking you trust people until they give you a reason not to, let me know if that's you. That was me. I'm putting my hand up first, okay? And she says, when they are indeed different or antagonistic. So even when you bump up against people who make the alarms go off in you, hey, Amy. If you bump up against people who make the alarms go off in you, yep, see, somebody else is saying, I automatically trust people. This is what we're taught to do. Okay, this is not a victim blaming session. This is an awareness that this is what we're taught to do. We are taught to trust people until they give us a reason not to. As of 5:24, 6 minutes ago, I'm saying we're not doing that anymore. Survivors often say that what bothers them most is why they instinctively believe others are capable of change without stopping to question that belief. Why do we believe that people are capable of change without stopping to question that belief? So she says, if we go back to the banking analogy, which is what she used before, talking about getting a return on your investment, a relationship in which one party gives another party the right to hold the other party's assets. Assets in a relationship can be fidelity, love, commitment, monogamy, and yes, trust. These are gifts or highly prized values of a successful, intimate relationship. They are more valuable than other traits such as kindness or even temper. Essentially, trust is the cement that holds relationships together, which is why the loss of trust is often a deal breaker. When someone has lost trust, the relationship is bound to end. But trust in the survivor has been influenced by some of her other facets, right? So even if you have trust broken and you're a naturally trustworthy person, what you want to do is rush to restore that trust. Why? Because it bumps up against being a peacemaker, it bumps up against being other centered, it bumps up against giving people the benefit of the doubt. So you naturally want to do that. Again, great quality to have when you're in a relationship with a trustworthy person, when there's a mutual give and take to both people. It's a terrible quality to have when you're in a relationship with somebody who's operating in darkness. Okay, so this is the last part I'm going to read. She says that other people with normal levels of agreeableness would not operate out of conditional trust. Are y'all hearing me? There are people who don't give trust away. There are people who don't trust until people give them a reason not to. There are people who know, hey, wait a minute, this person hasn't done anything to earn my trust. Therefore, if my trust is valuable, I don't need to freely give it away to somebody simply because they say they're trustworthy or because I like them. She says that um, trust that has been earned over time when expectations are met as promised. That's how we should trust people. Over time, when expectations are met as promised. Survivors who have low levels of suspicion and high normal levels of trust believe that conditional trust is rude. This is what I said at the beginning of this live stream. We don't want anybody to think we're difficult. We don't want anybody to think we're troublemakers. We don't want anybody to think certain things about us, when in reality, we don't control that. People are going to think what they want. But women are celebrated for being agreeable, for being relational, for connecting, for what are little girls? Sugar and spice and everything nice. Well, bump that. Bump the nice, bump the all of that. But survivors who have low levels of suspicion and high normal levels of trust believe that conditional trust is rude and, moreover, if demanded, something that would disrupt the social harmony of their relationship. Never having had their blind trust challenged or abused, it does not occur to them to operate on conditional trust. But oh my, when your trust is abused, when you are abused, when you are harmed by this type of relationship, once you start to do the work to wake up, guess what? You don't ever want to come up against this kind of darkness again. And listen, all of us can be fooled. I'm not on here saying that there is a for sure fail safe way that you can never end up in a relationship with somebody who operates in darkness. What I am saying is that you can be wiser, that you can choose who and how you're trusting people, that you can grow in your willingness to give conditional trust, that you can understand that there are people, yeah, conditional trust is considered rude. Most women would say, I don't want to live like that. I just want to love on people. I used to say this. I'm just a lover, not a fighter. Well, I take that back. I am still a lover, but I will fight you. I will fight you. If you try to bring darkness in my space, if you are an emotional vampire, if I see you harming women, if I see you harming children, I will fight you. I will. So I am now both. I am both a lover and a fighter. I am very much a person who gives trust conditionally. If I don't know you, I don't trust you. Why would I trust you if I don't know you? If you're a person who's recently getting out of one of these relationships and you're going to start dating, I'm going to tell you that it is so important that you learn this. Get this book, Women Who Love Psychopaths. Go watch all my videos. If you can't afford the book, go on TikTok, go on Instagram, go on Facebook. I have videos everywhere. I have 100 free podcasts. We have no excuse for being ignorant in a social media age. We just have to be willing to seek out this kind of information. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't give you the warm fuzzies. It doesn't make you feel like, oh, that's so sweet, right? No, this kind of thing sounds the alarm. It wakes you up. It can feel scary, but don't let it scare you. Use the knowledge as power. Let it empower you. I looked at the library and I could not find it. Somebody told me about this book 2 years ago, and I looked for it at the library. I looked for it on Audible. I was trying to find any way to not have to pay for it, because if you saw how many books I have and how many books I bought that I haven't read, but finally I had to break down and buy it. So if you find it at the library, good for you. I hope you do. But however you have to get it, I'm telling you to get it. It is one of those books. If you have daughters, they need to read this book. If you are dating, you need to read this book. If you like men, I don't care, even if you're already married, you need to read this book. Because when you have not been around darkness, it's very easy to believe that it does not exist. But trust me when I tell you, there are people who operate in darkness, who live in darkness, and who are darkness. I tell my clients this, and I'm coming back to close on this book, so don't think I got distracted. But I tell my clients this: if you are a Star Wars fan and you watch the evolution of Darth Vader and how Darth Vader became Darth Vader, oh, hey, if you're just joining, the book is Women Who Love Psychopaths by Sandra Brown. Let me show it to you. This is what it looks like. Women Who Love Psychopaths. I'm on Facebook and Instagram too, so that's why I'm putting it over here. But Women Who Love Psychopaths. So this is what it looks like, by Sandra Brown. She has a Facebook page. I think it's called the Institute for Relational Harm. Highly encourage you to go look her up, learn about these super traits. I'm going to keep talking about it. By the way, if you guys go to my website, which is fullyalivecoachingllc.com, you can sign up for my mailing list, because I'm going to be doing a series called Wiser Women, and I'm going to be talking about all of this. This is the kind of stuff I listen to, I read, I watch, not because I'm fascinated by it, because I recognize it is the key to help women stay safe. It is the key to help women take their power back. It is the key to help women find freedom from these destructive patterns that they find themselves in. I have so many clients who leave one harmful relationship and end up with another. I have so many clients who are twice divorced because they married an abuser 2 times, some even 3 times. Again, no judgment, because I can see that it is the goodness in them that they have a hard time believing in the darkness. It can be scary to know that there are people who operate in darkness, and your tendency is to want to be paranoid. I'm telling you guys, don't be paranoid. Use this to be powerful. Use it to empower you. How do we get justice? Because it's definitely not coming from the justice system. How do we get justice? We get justice by using our voice, by standing up and fighting for our rights. We get justice by speaking out. We get justice by shining a light on this, right? So that other women don't fall into this trap. So let me close with this because TikTok is telling me I got 5 minutes. She says, brushing up against darkness's untrustworthiness, a survivor's other facets accommodate what she has discovered. So, what I said, when you realize that there are people who operate in darkness, then you will naturally accommodate that. You will make an excuses for that because you place a value on social harmony. So you want to move towards resolution. Your optimism allows you to believe that change can happen, right? You could be the success story of the woman, I call it the beauty and the beast syndrome, right? The woman whose love is powerful enough to change the beast into a prince. No, that is a fairy tale. Don't fall for it. Ask any woman who has been in a relationship with a beastly man, and she will show you her scars. She will show you her scars. Her kindness, tenderheartedness, and sentimentality allow her to focus on what has been good in the relationship as what is worth redeeming while approaching the relationship with gentleness and not as a raving mad woman. Further into the pathological relationship, darkness reveals the repeating nature of his pathology. She will always be challenged to either accept the reality of his pathology or go with her natural and hardwired inclination to be optimistic that he can change. Listen, I'm not one of those people who believes that people can't change. If I believe that, I couldn't do the work that I do. I 100% believe that people can change when they want to. When they want to. Nobody changes against their will. Even God Himself does not change people against their will. I don't care how pretty you are, how smart you are, how kind you are, how loving you are, how much of a prayer warrior you are not going to change a man against his will. The only thing that is going to change that man is him making the decision that he wants to change. And listen to me, not because he tells you he wants to change, but you actually watch him do the work to change, and you see the fruit of that work evidenced in changed behavior. The words mean nothing, zero, nada, zilch, empty. It's just breath, it's a vapor, it's like the wind. So don't listen to the words, watch the actions, and the actions should be a change in behavior. Therefore, you can keep yourself safe. You have power. The power is in your voice. The power is in you knowing that your good traits will naturally attract people who operate in darkness. Doesn't mean there's anything that's wrong with you. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. It's like a jewelry store, right? When you go in a jewelry store, where do they have the diamonds locked up? Where did they have the things that are valuable in the case? You can look at them, but don't touch. People can look at you, they can observe you, make sure they do it from afar until you're sure that they're safe enough to come up close. I want to say thanks to you guys for being on this impromptu live with me. I hope you got something that is valuable to you. I'm going to keep doing these. Like I said, go to my website, fullyalivecoachingllc.com, and sign up for my newsletter because when I send out the notice about my Wiser Woman course that is coming up, I want you to be a part. We only have a few months left in 2025. We can shift the energy. You can go into 2026 stronger, wiser, more productive. Oh, good. You found it at the library. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I hope you can get it. Um, but however you have to get the book. Be sure to follow me, like this live, go sign up for my newsletter, and empower yourself to stay safe. Empower your daughters to stay safe, your friends, your neighbors. If you really love people, then the best way we can love them is to keep them from the harm of people who operate in darkness. Thanks, you guys.